for joining me. I think Heather has already put in the URL to access these slides. I'm going to kind of be bouncing back and forth between these slides and some website stuff. But you can definitely, you have access to these slides if you need to. They're going to be a really good resource after the fact. If you want to go back and attempt anything or see how I did anything. So we're going to build a website. My name is Dante Orsini. I'm from Shaler Area School District. And my goals for today are, if you've never built a website at all, I'd like to get you started and at least get it online so that you have something that you can work on and improve later. And if you're really comfortable with Google Sites, hopefully I can give you some new ideas, some new inspiration to kind of add value to your existing site. As I began planning and putting this whole thing together, I found a whole bunch of new features, which I'll be using. So I hope to kind of hit a pretty broad spectrum of user bases here. How I'd like to proceed today is kind of twofold. On the left is what I'm going to do, and on the right is what you can do. Let me get rid of that. And what I'm going to do is I'd like to show you what I call exemplar work. I want to show you a website I built that I think just basically maxes out everything that Google Sites can do, and you're going to follow me there, or you can just watch your screen. Then I'm going to show you how to build a really quick website on your own. Then at the end, we'll cover more details and functions, maybe some more advanced stuff if we have time, and then we'll do a Q&A. And Heather, if you need to bump in at any time, just go ahead. I love interruptions. So the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to just kind of demonstrate some exemplar work and have you guys see what it is that you can kind of build up to if you'd like. So I'm going to head over to this Google site that I built, and it didn't take very long. You can see a couple of things already. First, you see a welcome page, some text, and a custom image. Navigation is up on the top right. And maybe for today's presentation, I'm trying to hit a really broad audience, whether you're a team leader at a middle school and you want to communicate to parents, or an administrator that wants to communicate to parents, or if you're just a teacher trying to communicate to students. So you're going to see a lot of different use cases here. If you're a teacher, maybe you have a bunch of different classes. And so on my website, I've got a whole kind of page dedicated to my classes with a little image carousel. We see these typically on a lot of different websites. And specifically, I can go into Algebra 1. And maybe what I'm doing with my Algebra 1 class, or maybe what you're doing with your classroom, is a project. And so you start with kind of an introduction and a YouTube video. Here, students are going to be researching climate change. And so there's a YouTube video based on climate change, a project description, and I've even embedded a rubric that I've made. This rubric is a Google Sheet, and the nice thing about the kind of the synergy between using Google's suite and their website, this makes it really seamless, where if I added like maybe a new column or a new row for something, this automatically updates. So here's kind of like a little example of a grading rubric for the project. Maybe I need this website to host some documents for the project my students are working on. We can do that. Maybe you want to create a calendar for your students to subscribe to. If it's a big research project or a paper, and you want students and parents to have kind of a centralized place where they can see all their different deadlines, you can embed a calendar. Furthermore, the nice thing about Google Calendar, this embedded feature, is students can subscribe to it, and all of this just gets transferred to the calendar in any of their devices. And lastly, it kind of included an example like project reflection here. And all of this was just done using common tools that you've already used in Google's software package. We've just put it into a website. If maybe you're a team leader or administrator and you just want to create a parent portal, you can do that. Create some links so that parents know where they can access different resources for student progress monitoring. Maybe one thing I was thinking is, especially like in a middle school setting, if you're a team leader and you've got team time, maybe you could create a calendar here that allows parents to visit and see when team time is available, or when there is team time where they can speak with you and kind of create, email you and contact you to set up like a conference or something. Google also has a really great feature called calendar slots, which I couldn't embed here because of a limitation on my own school district, but you can even create something where parents could log in and click on this calendar, and then from there, they would email you and they would be reserving slots to come meet with you and discuss student needs or anything like that. And lastly, just some more kind of resources. So maybe a parent portal. One of the most common things I'm asked for my website by teachers in my school district is how I do my sign in and sign out. All of my students in my classroom, anytime they want to leave, they know that on their phone or on a kind of a really low-end laptop I have in the back of my classroom, they can go and sign out using this form on a website. And they fill in their name and where they're going. They fill this out when they leave and when they come back. Everything is time-stamped. And this gives you really great data for parent meetings and stuff like that, whenever you can say, this is how often your child is leaving class, where they're going, if there's patterns. And this is a really great feature for if you're in a regular classroom setting, but even in a remote learning setting, we still have to take attendance. So maybe you want to create a website with a remote learning sign-in so that students every day can sign in. And again, all of this populates a spreadsheet, which on the back end is time-stamped, so you know if they signed in or not and at what time. So there's some really great stuff that you can do with attendance. I even have something for field trips where students, anytime they want to go on field trips, fill out a form here. And I always make sure that they include what current grade they have. I think if you're a teacher, you definitely know why this last box is important for field trips and whatnot. But that's all really kind of great stuff that even in a non-remote learning setting is helpful. And lastly, I've seen a lot of districts, there's a lot of initiatives for kind of helping students and families and just the community at large balance themselves as we go through this quarantine. And so maybe you have kind of a mindful living website or resource for parents where they can read about what it is. Here I've created a map of Shaler area with a bunch of different parks located. You know, getting out right now is a really great way to practice, to do some mindful practices where you can decompress, you know, de-stress and kind of that. And again, all of this is really easily done with Google. Maybe a calendar that kind of helps structure some reflective practices and stuff like that. And even you can embed GIFs and other animations and stuff that help for really whatever, but in this case, this mindfulness webpage is just all about helping to kind of manage stress and emotions in what can be kind of a stressful time. So I put all this together, it didn't take too long and everything was pretty straightforward. So that was kind of my exemplar work, and I wanted to show you kind of what is the full capacity of Google Sites. And now, oh, go ahead.
You for just a second. There have been about 4 questions that have come in. First, somebody would like you to go back to that sign in, sign out slide so they can see sort of what data you collect.
Sure.
And then while you're
on my sign in, sign out.
Okay. A couple questions about
keep in mind, one thing that's not included here.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. 2 questions.
One thing that's not included. Okay, I'll go real quick. One thing that's not included is anytime a Google form is completed, every response is automatically timestamped. So it doesn't in here include anything like what's today's date or what's today's time, because all of that is automatically populated in a separate column that Google software creates in that spreadsheet. So if you're looking for that, it's automatically generated as soon as a student clicks submit.
Okay. We also had a couple of questions about integration with Google Classroom. First of all, is there a way to add a link from your site to your Google Classroom page? I know you can add a link in Google Classroom to your Google site, but can you put a link to your Google Classroom? And then also, does it integrate? Just to what extent does it integrate with Google Classroom?
In terms of linking this, the one thing I've done, and there may be a more elegant way to do this, but just like on my own website, wherever I have my class pages, typically right around here, I put the Google class code. And I just have that for period 1. And if there's period 2, I put the Google class code right under it. So if students come to my website, they can navigate to their period and then immediately have a Google class code presented to them if they want to join there. In terms of other integrations, I'm not sure specifically. I think in order to answer, does this integrate with Google Classroom, I think the question can't be answered if there is a specific instance of what kind of an integration you're looking for. I might be able to answer that question, but I think just in generally, does this integrate? the answer could be yes or no. No, that I don't have anything Google Classroom oriented on here, but yes, in that it is a Google product. So just about anything that you create and can save in your Google Drive can be hosted here.
Sure.
But if there are specific instances, feel free to drop those in the chat. I can either answer them specifically later or research that on my own and get back to people.
Sounds good. Then one other question, can access be controlled to a Google site via username and password? Either a district one or one that you create?
That's a great question. That's something I've battled with a lot, and I've tried to find a lot of little sneaky ways around. So the answer is, as far as I could tell, no, not really. In order to have a website that is going to host some kind of like login credential with a username and password, that's getting way past the ability, the target audience of Google Sites. Everything about Google Sites is meant to host Google content and even third-party content, but mostly Google content that has already been created, and there's not kind of a privacy concern or individual user concern. It's all meant for general consumption. The only thing I've been able to see that kind of helps address that user-based stuff is like this spreadsheet right here. This is only viewable to everyone on the internet right now because as a spreadsheet in Google, on my Google Drive, I've edited the sharing preferences. Now, if I wanted this to only be visible to, let's say, students in my district, but not general internet users, if I change the sharing preferences of this spreadsheet on my Google Drive to just the Shaler domain that we have, then it will be limited to them. So in terms of addressing username and passwords, typically that's because you want very targeted information for an audience. I don't know that this is, I've not found a way to do that. That's really user-friendly in any way. But I think through sharing preferences on different content that you manage on your website, you can kind of achieve that effect. If that doesn't answer the question, feel free to follow up. Sorry, so are we good to continue, do you think, Heather?
Yes.
Okay. And like I said, even at the end, if there's more questions, we can definitely handle those. Okay, so let me put this down here. What I'd like to do is just kind of walk you through and get a really quick website built. And this is going to be very bare bones. If you have, excuse me, if you have the Google slides that I have, that are in the chat, you can just click right where it says here. If you don't and you want to follow along, it's just sites.google.com/new. And the reason that /new is kind of important is because Google has two website builders that are both active right now. We'll kind of talk about this even at the end, but Google has a really frustrating practice of having multiple packages of software all do the same thing, whether it's like text messaging, website building, stuff like that. And they do have two website building platforms. We want to use the new one. It's much easier, and that's kind of what my guide goes through. If you're following along in the presentation, everything I'm about to show you is laid out explicitly in the presentation, so you can always even go back and do this later if you want to. Or if you want to do it live with me in real time, you can, and I'm going to create one in real time, so you can kind of manage this either way, whatever is easier for you. I think if you have two screens, you can do some more stuff. If you're limited to one screen, you may just want to watch, but you get to choose. So what I'm going to do to create a website is go to sites.com or sites.google.com/new. And depending on what you're logged in as, this is either going to create a website under, this will be my Shaler Gmail account. But if I was logged into just my personal account, it would create it under my personal account. More on that kind of at the end. In order to create a new website, once we're here, we're going to click the plus sign. And it has already begun to create a website for us. So this portion right here is my main homepage. And if you've created a website, you can just kind of create, maybe you're going to have to excuse my typing. It is terrible. You're going to create kind of a welcome message or something like that, and we'll talk about changing things in a bit. But one thing that I want to get to before we go any further is how this is actually saved and published and all that. So up here in the top left corner, there are two things, untitled site and site name. And the slides point this out, but this is kind of really important. What I'm going to do up here is what we put here will be the title, will be the name of the file that saves all of our website. Just like you have a doc file or a sheets file or a presentation file, you'll have a Google Sites file. So I'm going to name this something like my first attempt at a website. And I'm going to name it that because that's really obviously not something I want on the website itself. This is something that I read just in a file explorer on my Google Drive or something. But if you notice, the Google site automatically pushes it down onto the website itself. And I would suggest, obviously, that you always get rid of this. You can put whatever you want here. These two things can be different. Mr. Orsini's website. If you want to put something there, you can. But I just want to draw that this up here, if you were ever looking for like, where is this information? Where's my website actually saved? This is the file name at top, okay? And you can either have something here if you want or not. I tend to leave it blank, but that's kind of up to you. So I now have a name of the file, my first attempt at a website. I've created a little title. And like I said, we're just going to create a really bare bones website. Let's come over to our content pane and just click text box. And it'll just dump a text box onto my website. And you can fill it with whatever you want. And I'm just going to resize it to about half the screen by clicking on that dot and moving it around. If you want, you can go ahead and edit the text using the text edit tools above. And there's kind of plenty of options that are built into here that you can use. You'll notice that I'm just kind of putting in filler text for now, just because more than anything, I think you shouldn't be trying to build your exact website right now. Today is all about just exploring and playing. And then once you get comfortable with how the tools work, you can always do specific use cases later on. But for right now, I just kind of mess with this and have some fun. So all I've done so far is named the file of my website. And I've created a single web page that just says welcome. I've got some text and maybe I want to put an image on here too. That's pretty common. So I'm going to come over to my content pane. I'm going to click images. And you've got some different options that you can explore, but I'm going to go with the easiest and what I think is a really good, fast way to get into website building, which is select. So I'm going to click select. And again, I've got lots of options here, but I'm going to do a Google image search. And oftentimes our images are things that we pull off the internet anyway, so Google knows that, and it just went ahead and built in Google's image search into its website creation so that you can just do the search here. You don't have to open a new tab and do a separate image search and download the image. You can just do the search here, click on an image, and tell it to insert. And you can select more than one if you want, but I'm just going to select one image and insert that right there. You can click and drag to move it around. You can click on it and resize. You can even click on it and delete it if you don't like it. So again, we haven't done too much. Like I said, I just kind of wanted a bare bones website up. But where we are right now is we've got a welcome message, maybe some play text, an image, and I want to do one more thing, and then I'm going to show you straight how we can kind of take this live. So over in our content pane, there's a whole bunch of stuff we can put in here, but kind of the most important next step is I want more web pages on my site. So I'm going to click on pages. Again, we were on insert. Now I'm going to click on pages. And again, there's a plus button. I'm going to click plus, and I'm going to create a new page. Maybe this page is for period 9, or maybe I'm going to create a web page just for my homeroom because I need to get out some important information. When I've clicked done, I now have a new page here. The navigation on my website automatically updates so that I now have a home page and a homeroom page. That homeroom page can also be accessed under the Pages pane. And in here, we can do the same thing that we did before, which is embed text boxes and put in pictures and everything else. But I'm just going to kind of leave that blank because all I wanted to do so far is just get you comfortable with putting text and images and creating new pages. And we can come back and do more advanced pages and sub pages and stuff like that in a moment. If you're following along in the notes or on the slides, where we are is right around here where we've accessed our pages and created a new one. And we're now going to move to actually publishing this. So this is where you want to take your time and don't work too far ahead, and maybe just kind of hang out and listen for a second, because there are some things that can happen that I don't want you, and it's some traps I don't want you to fall into. So let's say that I've built my website and now I'm ready to go ahead and put it on the internet, right? I want it to go live. There's kind of a life cycle of your website. The first thing that you want to check for is you want to make sure that everything has been saved. Being Google, everything is saved in the background, but you can always check up here where it says all changes saved in Drive. And once everything's saved, that means all of the work we've done, the image, the text, this other little web page, all of that has been saved to this file right here, which is great. It's doing that all for us. We don't have to worry about it. Once we know everything's saved, what we really want to do is, before we click publish and put this on the internet, we should really look at our work. So once we've checked that we're saved, we're going to click on preview. And this is a really great tool that lets you experience the website before it's published the same way that someone just randomly on the internet would experience your website. So if you take a look, I can click on home and see what my home page looks like. I can click on homeroom and see that. And it even gives you different form factors. In the bottom right corner, you can see that this is the laptop view. Maybe I know most of my students are going to access my web page on their phone. So I can click on this icon to see what a portrait phone would look like. And you can see the navigation has disappeared. It turned into a little hamburger menu up here. Or maybe on a tablet in landscape mode. And maybe I don't really like the look of that home room on tablet mode. So if I don't like how a preview is showing me something, I can always exit the preview and come back, and maybe I just call this home room like that, you know, and I make a little change, and my changes have been saved. And then when I preview again, okay, yeah, now I see that on an iPad, this doesn't show up in kind of a weird way. You know, and you don't have to do this, but I just want to show you an example of how you can see something in the preview and then go back and change it because you don't like the way it appeared. Let's say I've previewed my whole website and I look at it, everything looks fine, everything looks good, I'm ready to go live. The next step that I'm about to take as your presenter, you probably at home should not take, because I'm going to publish this, and I'm okay if everyone on the internet right now sees everything I have here. But if you put something inappropriate or a joke or something somewhere on here, you may not want to click publish right now because it will be available to the internet. So maybe just pause and watch me take the next couple of steps. Once everything's been saved and I've previewed, I'm now ready to publish. I'm ready to put this on the internet. I'm going to click publish, and there's a couple really important steps here that I want to point out. Anytime we publish to the internet, we obviously need a website address. So maybe I'm being, you know, really, I don't even know. I think this website's great. So I want this to be www.best.com. And if I take a look, it's already saying no. And not only is it already saying no, it's telling me only lowercase letters and numbers and dashes. And if I look underneath, this is really important right here. In order to have your own URL, like I have my own website. My own website is infernomath.com. And I've paid for this name, infernomath.com. In order to have your own name, you have to pay, and we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. And if you don't want to pay, if you just want your website to be up for free, well, then you're going to have to deal with the fact that your website name won't be perfectly what you want. Here, my website name will have this prefix on it no matter what. And the only thing I get to control is the last words as you see them appear right there. And so this website address portion is pretty darn important. Yours may not say shaler.us. This depends on your Google login right now, but it will at least say this sites.google.com/, and then you get to control that last part. So I'm just going to call this example 95 because it's probably the 95th time I've done this. And if I look at, go ahead, it's giving me a check mark saying this is available. And this would be my website address, just so that you're aware. Your dialog box may look a little different depending on how you're logged in again. But kind of no matter where you are, one thing that you want to do is I look who can view my website. Only people in my district can view my website until I manage and say that published anyone at Shaler. I want to change it so that when this is published, everyone on the internet, anyone can find and view my published version. And if these steps went a little quick, don't forget, back on the slides, everything is there for you exactly how you're going to do it. So I'm ready. I want this to be published. Done with that. This will be my website right here, and I'm ready to go. Now that I've clicked publish, this is live on the internet. And so kind of the last part is, now that supposedly, like this is on the internet, right? That's kind of a general statement. Now that this is on the internet, how do I actually bring people here? And the very last part and the easiest part is, well, up on your website, there's a little link right here and it says copy published site link. If you click that, it'll give you the link to your website. You can copy this link and you can paste it on Twitter. You can paste it into an address bar. You can, if you want to try it in incognito mode, you can do that. You can text it to friends. You can do whatever you want. But this is now, this link right here is how people get to your website. If you want to shorten it, you can use a URL shortener like tiny.com or bit.ly or anything like that. But that's how you're actually going to bring people to your website. And as I look, it's 11:30, so I want to make sure I give time for the Q&A and everything. So I'm going to kind of stop with this portion of things and head back to my slides. What we've done is created our website, right? And in the, on the slides, there's definitely a lot more we could do, and the exemplar demonstrated all of that. So I allude to some of that in the slides. I talk about some of those advanced features like finding a domain, paying for a domain, and even using it. There's some links here that you can click on. You can put ads on your website and go ahead and make money on it if you want. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. And there's some of that in the, on the slides if you ever want to click on those links and explore that. But I think we'll do the question and answer. And if there's not questions, I can show you some more things, but I at least want to give ample opportunity for question and answers. So.